fourth video in a row. um, I wanted to just do like a little quick story time of Jean-Michel Basquiat and just a little thing that happened and something I'm kind of curious about. I might do a little, maybe I'll do like a little reading. We'll see. Uh, Let me make note of that so I don't forget. But the story time I wanted to talk about was when he, well, his, not he, but his exhibit was in Toronto a few years back. And I really want to go to New York to see, like, I think there's like a permanent exhibit for him there. I think in a couple places, but it was only like a little pass through in Toronto. And I didn't really get to see everything, unfortunately, because I spent so much time. It's like his paintings are so interesting that I it takes a long time. Like you literally do what I never thought I would do, which is when you see people just staring at a painting, I'm like, what are you really taking in? Like you look and you walk. Like what else is there to see? You see it. It's nice, it's cool. Okay, you move to the next one. But his are really captivating to me. It's like I was always looking at them trying to figure out, what are you saying with this and what is like it just okay. So let me start from the beginning. Yeah, so his exhibit came, and prior to it coming here, I remember hearing Swiss Beats talk about his art. And I was just like, who is this person? I think it was the pronunciation. I could not figure out who he was talking about. So I looked up the lyrics of the song where he mentioned his name and I looked up the artist. And then the first painting was one of the entitled ones. It was the skull. I think I'll insert it. And I was just like, it looked to me like someone who has maybe schizophrenia or something like that drew it, because I was so confused as to what I was looking at. It just looked like confusion almost. Like it just looked like confusion. I couldn't tell where he started, where he ended. I was almost like obsessed with that painting, and I kept just looking at it and staring at it. I mean, obviously, I have an image of it on my phone, and I kept staring at it. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like how do you think of drawing something like this and in this way? So fast forward, I finally got the opportunity to see some of like little clips of his online, and was able to find out his working style, and that his working style was basically, he would start and stop, move on to something else. So he might have had like a couple different paintings going at the same time, or different pieces of artwork going at the same time. So I finally got to see him actually in action. And yeah, when his exhibit came to Toronto, I really, really wanted to see it. So I took advantage of that opportunity. And again, it was the first time of me just going to a museum and looking at art and really taking it in, so much so to the point that the gallery was closing. And as I was leaving, there were like three other separate rooms, and I would like large rooms where I missed like a whole bunch of his work. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And it was in the wintertime. So I was like, I don't know if I could take the trip all the way back. So I'm hoping that, he comes back, that his exhibit comes back to Toronto, or I get the opportunity to go to New York or wherever they have like a larger exhibit. I can take a look at his artwork. Anyways, the real, not the real story, but what I wanted to get into was that when I went to the gift shop, there was a bunch of things there, and there was a DVD of The Radiant Child, which is, I guess, a documentary about him. And I really wanted to watch it, and I really wanted to buy it. But it was like, I think like $30 or something like that. And I just didn't think that it was worth the price. Not, any offense to him. It wasn't really a financial thing so much so, but it was just kind of like, I don't know what is on it. I don't know, because I know he didn't do a lot of interviews and stuff like that. So I really don't know what's on it, and didn't really say much about it. So I was like, okay, I'm here now. If I go all the way back home and then I don't get it, and I just kind of was going back and forth in my head to the point I just said, forget it, and just kind of bought a couple little, keepsakes. And when I got home, like literally 30 minutes later, I was just flipping through the channels on television, and The Radiant Child was on. And I was like, what are the odds? So I was fortunate enough to still be able to watch it. And it actually played back to back. I was fortunate enough to be able to watch it, even though I didn't buy the DVD. I want to end up getting it as a keepsake as well, because they had a book that was like over $100, like 150 or something, kind of like coffee table book. But to the main points, other than that, I just kind of became very fascinated with him, and I found that documentary to be very fascinating. Hearing him talk, hearing about his life, and the thing that stood out to me the most, and I felt so almost personally vindicated, was the unfortunate relationship that he had with his father, and how much of a role his father played in, his depression and what he went through, kind of, having your father impose their will on you, and kind of, like my house, my rules type of thing, um, where, his father wanted him to, get be in a profession that is something where, you're guaranteed a check, it brings prestige and things like that. And he wanted to do his art. And luckily his mom was supportive of that, and, gave him an outlet for that. But, I guess there was the story that he ran away from home, and kind of back and forth, and sleeping here and sleeping there. And, just to get down to it, just the unfortunate passing, like how he passed. And there's so many things that are coming to mind about it. I might do like a part two, in terms of like people who kind of almost predict their own death, or know that they're going to be passing, and how their behavior seems to kind of play out in a very interesting way. By the way, I always said I feel like Kid Cudi should play um, Jean-Michel in a movie. I really think not. I think the resemblance is there, but I think that he would play a really good part. I think that there would be a warning that should be attached to that, though, because it seems like people, when they really get into that, what is it called again? Not performance art. Getting distracted. I forgot what the term is called. I'll remember and I'll insert it. But there's just too much distraction right now. But when people take on the role as if like they kind of live the role, I feel like because of the challenges that he's had in his life, and the things that he's expressed, and his own battles with addiction, that it could, hopefully, not that, well, I'm kind of going both ways with this. Hopefully it would not affect him in the way that a lot of people who have done that type of um, acting uh, has affected those people, where they kind of take it to the extremes. um, I can't believe I can't remember what it's called. I'm just completely drawing a blank, but that's what's been happening as of late. So, getting back to the story, yeah, just the unfortunate relationship he had with his father. But like where I was saying that I felt personally vindicated was just the fact that one of his friends was telling a story about, when he finally started to really get attention, his art was selling, and him, seeing his father leaving a restaurant that he was, I guess, entering. And it was an expensive restaurant. And it's kind of like, you have that moment like, Daddy, I made it. You doubted me, and I did it anyway. And his father walked right past him and didn't say anything, according to what his friend said. And I was like, how soul crushing. And that's exactly what he was saying, that he was crushed. Like, it's like, damn, my own father just walked past me like a stranger. And yeah, I think that contributed to a lot of his, downward spiral. Um, that's just my personal opinion. But like I said, the personal vindication I felt was, unfortunately him passing, but his father having to be the executor of his estate. That is such poetic justice. I'm sorry if it sounds like cruel, but that's such poetic justice, because of how, if he really treated his son that way. I mean, I don't doubt that he had love for his son, but depending on how we're raised in our culture, sometimes it just kind of comes out different. And he had to face people coming up to him and praising his son, and literally having to negotiate prices, millions of dollars, for paintings that his son did, when he really didn't support him at all, and didn't think that that was anything prestigious, or anything worth doing, or anything, what's the word I'm looking for, just anything of value. But he had no choice. He had to face it at that point. And unfortunately, he lost his life as well. But yeah, I just felt like that was such an interesting thing, how that happens. Interesting how God works. Sometimes you don't see those things coming, but he denied his son, even to his own face. And then at the end of the day, he had to be the one to be like, yeah, you can sell this for 150 million. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how things work. So yeah, that's just my little story time about that. And I think there'll be a part two in terms of, how when I was watching that documentary, just the actions and different things that were happening to him before he passed away, that it's so interesting that a lot of people seem to have this story where it's kind of like they know. I'm thinking of Shak Ji, um, from they're playing with me so hard right now. Um, I'm thinking of Shak Ji from Digital Underground, or Humpty Hump, whichever one you want to call him, and how there were some videos of him that were released by, I think, someone who got his phone, an ex-girlfriend or friend or something like that. And he was alone during the latter days of his, I don't know if it was months or if it was a year or something like that of his life, living out of a hotel or something like that. It was some, it's a, yeah, we'll save it for a part two, but it's very interesting how people seem to almost like have a knowing that they're going to pass, and they just kind of have this confessional, and they do unusual things that they weren't known necessarily for doing. It's almost like part of their soul is like reaching out before they go, and then they pass. So that's it for now. Like, comment, share, follow. Let me know your feelings about that. If you are a fan of his artwork, if you've noticed any plagiarism. I see a lot of things mimicking his artwork. Oh yeah, that was another thing too. I'm curious about. Maybe I'll do a reading on it. Like I was saying, about how he feels, because he was very much a person of integrity, and he didn't like to water down his things. There was a story that was told about him in the documentary as well, where it was said that there was a couple that wanted to buy a painting, and they wanted it to match, I guess, the furniture in their home, or maybe the decor in their home. And they asked if he can redo the painting in another color, and he was like, kicked them out. And I think on the way out, he poured water on them or something like that. It was funny, but it's just that he was that serious about his artwork, and there, he was an activist, and he did that through his words and his work. And just the fact that now, he's on socks, on t-shirts, on hats, on pins, and different things like that. I wonder how he feels about that. Or I don't really think it's something that matters to them on the other side, but it's just, I'm curious, like, energetically, if that's something that he would have wanted, or if he just really doesn't care at all. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening to my little story time. Again, like, share, follow, depending on where you're watching this, subscribe. Share your thoughts about Jean-Michel if you're a fan of his artwork, if you got to see Radiant Child, if you've seen any of his art in person. Let me know. Until next time.